Coming up next, the story of a genre-defining song that's all about sex. But its lyrics, outside of the title and the chorus, are overtly non-sexual, with words like cloak full of eagles and hubcap diamond star halo. The lyrics were pretty much improv, as the rock star behind him ran out of time and had to come up with them on the spot while he was recording, while the tape was running. He referenced an instrument in the chorus of the song, but he never used it in the song. This passionate rock star has gone down in history as the ultimate mystery. Many said he was a psychic. He told everybody when he was 8 years old he'd be a rock star. He pretty much foretold his whole life, and he told everybody that he wouldn't make it to the age of 30. In fact, he wrote a song that predicted his own death. And turns out he was exactly right. The excess and tragedy behind the singer and his famous song from the 70s is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you believe that great music is the universal language, you're going to want to subscribe below right now. Make sure to click the bell so that you're always in the know. Interviews, the stories of the song straight from the artist. We also have a Patreon that you're going to want to check out. You're going to find an additional catalog of exclusive content behind the scenes. You can even become an honorary producer. That helps us to curate this channel and keep it a daily channel. It's time to return to another one of my favorite shows that we do on this channel. It's called Breakthrough. If you haven't seen it before, this is the show where we break down the songs or albums or events that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career, giving them the momentum to secure long-term success. Today's Breakthrough is about a band that already had that success in the UK, but they had a major game changer in the US with today's song. And many historians have stated that the appearance of T-Rex frontman Marc Bolan on the popular BBC TV music show Top of the Pops in March of 1971 started the glam rock movement in the 70s. Appearing with his band T-Rex, Marc Bolan shocked and fascinated viewers by wearing glitter on his face, a gleaming satin jacket, and pink trousers. You're dirty and sweet, oh yeah. Bolan and T-Rex's appearance on Top of the Pops empowered a generation of teenagers to the idea of androgyny and influenced other prolific rock artists in Britain, including Mott the Hoople, Sweet, Slade, Roxy Music, Queen, The Smiths, and perhaps the most endearing glam figure of all, David Bowie. T-Rex's 1971 album Electric Warrior was a landmark, spearheading a record of the glam movement, and it featured Marc Bolan's signature anthem, Bang A Gong, Get It On, parentheses song. Marc Bolan put out his debut single in '65 called The Wizard. That one featured Zeppelin's Jimmy Page on guitar. Sunlight in his eyes, he charms his magic. He formed Tyrannosaurus Rex in 1967. The band, named after the tyrant lizard, released their first two studio albums in '68, and their third in '69, their fourth LP titled A Beard of Stars also in '69. They shortened their name to T-Rex, that was in 1970, and they released their self-titled album with their breakthrough hit, Ride a White Swan. Ride a white swan like the people of a Belgian way along. And that flew all the way to number 2 on the UK singles chart. And then came Hot Love, a single that ruled on top of the UK singles chart for 6 consecutive weeks. I'm a two-penny prince and I give a hot love. Blasting 10 top 10 hits from 1970 to 1974, T-Rex was the biggest group in Britain, and no rock personality was larger than one Marc Bolan. As manic as T-Rextasy was in the UK, it was almost non-existent in America. For example, Hot Love was massive in Britain and other parts of Europe, but in America, the song hit a brick wall, went to number 72 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, Bang A Gong, Get It On, that was the lone exception. It rose all the way to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, while once again dominating the UK chart at number 1 for 4 consecutive weeks. And that's where it was a breakthrough in America. The genesis of Bang A Gong began while Bolan was touring the US in 1971. He was brainstorming with his T-Rex bandmate drummer Bill Legend about possible drum patterns for a song idea that he was keen on. Bolan's goal was to create a bold new track that would finally light up audiences for T-Rex in America. They were working out of a hotel room in New York City. With legend, Bolan lifted the simple blues rock riff from Chuck Berry's 1959 tune, Little Queenie.
Go, 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 Little Queenie.
Marc Bolan was a huge admirer of Chuck Berry, as many emerging artists of the 70s, really the 60s and 70s were. And he long fancied to record his own version of Little Queenie. Chuck Berry, of course, the ultimate trailblazer as a musician, a showman, and a songwriter. Now, once Bolan and Legend worked out the rhythm arrangement with inspiration from Chuck Berry, they flew to LA to reconvene with the rest of the band for a gig at the Whiskey on LA's famed Sunset Strip. Arrangements were made by producer Tony Visconti for the band to record the new track at Wally Heider's studios in Hollywood. Now, when they got to the studio, Bolan had the rhythm structure, the chorus and the You're Dirty Sweet and You're My Girl line, but really, he had nothing else.
You're dirty sweet and you're my girl.
So Marc Bolan had to come up with the rest of the song lyrics in a flash. He didn't have the time to put any deep thought into the writing of the lyrics, so he relied on the tried and true theme of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Get It On for the physical relations part of it, and Bang A Gong for the indulgence of that nasty white powder that was so prevalent in the 70s and 80s. Drug of choice, I guess you'd say, for those in rock and entertainment.
Get it on, Bang A Gong, get it on.
Tony Visconti discovered T-Rex, and it was his endorsement and his relationships that helped land the group their first record deal. Visconti was also instrumental in creating the T-Rex sound, predicated on a studio effect called repeat echo. The intention was to give the music a raw, psychedelic vibe. The last thing they wanted was this music to sound slick or overproduced. Bang A Gong was originally titled Get It On, before that phrase was pushed aside into parentheses, because the label was afraid people would confuse it with Get It On by the Chicago-based group Chase. That was also a pop hit in 71.
Girl, listen what I say, get it on in the morning now.
And besides Bolan's potent combo of lead vocals and lead guitar, the nucleus of T-Rex was made up of excellent musicians. I'll tell you about that right after we recognize our amazing sponsor, Zenni. Truly eyewear for everyone. Now, whether you want a sleek new look with summer coming or sunglasses or both, just go to Zenni.com and choose your style, and make sure to add great features like my favorite, talk about it a lot, Blue Blocks. That protects your eyes from digital blue light from our screens. And you just put in your prescription, you put in your address, and they'll deliver them right to your door. Really cool. Zenni.com. All right, so let's talk about the players in the band. Of course, the aforementioned Bill Legend on drums and tambourine. Steve Peregrine Took, who was a multi-instrumentalist, primarily assigned to percussion on Bang A Gong and backing vocals. And Steve Curie on bass, who Visconti called the secret weapon of T-Rex, with an uncanny ability to make a simple piece of music sound very complicated. The piano parts in Bang A Gong were performed by Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Rick Wakeman, or it could have been keyboardist-composer Blue Weaver. I've heard rumors of both playing on that. It is possible that both played separate piano segments on the track, with Wakeman playing only the gliding pitches known as glissandos that are featured several times on the song. At the time of the recording of Bang A Gong, Wakeman was broke, and he was desperate for session work. I guess Wakeman bumped into Bolan on Oxford Street, and Bolan offered to pay him for a session. After hearing the rough version of the song, Rick Wakeman mentioned to Visconti that he didn't think the song needed a piano. Visconti suggested that Wakeman just add a gliss. Wakeman again dismissed it, saying that Tony Visconti could easily play that without him, to which Bolan replied, "Rick, you want rent money, don't you?" The sax riffs were played by Ian MacDonald, King Crimson, of course, later a founding member of Foreigner, until disagreements with Mick Jones precipitated his exit from the band after the Head Games album. MacDonald's performance included the playing of one baritone and two alto saxes. The backup vocals, including the high notes in the chorus, were provided by the comedic singing duo of Marc Volman and Howard Kalin, otherwise known as Flo and Eddie from the Turtles. Originally, Bang A Gong was written without a string section. You can imagine that. After hearing the song so many times, it's hard too. Bolan didn't want strings on the song, apparently. But Visconti felt it would add a welcome derivative from their previous hits. The two were discussing the idea in from the string players who were sitting in seats at the studio were kind of sitting there waiting for their direction, their instruction. At first, Bolan looked frightened by the whole concept of incorporating strings to the arrangement. But, he mellowed when Visconti had the string musicians play the root of three simple chords in the chorus. It was very subtle, but effective. So going back to Chuck Berry, he was unquestionably one of the most influential artists of the rock era. He was a revolutionary artist who loved to push the envelope and write lyrics that were extremely provocative for the 50s and early 60s for sure. And to pay respect to Chuck Berry's Little Queenie, the composition the track was fashioned after, Bolan softly sings Chuck Berry's line, Meanwhile,
I was thinking.
In the fade of Bang A Gong. It was an unscripted ad-lib by Bolan in the studio that was kept on the recording.
Meanwhile, I was thinking.
Recording sessions with Marc Bolan were always conducted in a festive atmosphere, like a T-Rex concert. Bolan dressed up to record at the studio, just like he did for his live performances. He would walk in and he'd wear stage gear and platform shoes, and he'd just jump up and down, just like he did on stage when he was playing live. Always in the mood to be in front of an adoring audience. Marc Bolan invited friends to the recording sessions to see their reaction to the music that the band was recording in real time. He loved it when his friends bounced around with approval in the control room. Very cool guy. Bolan was also very secretive about the demos of his music, apparently. He never brought a demo to the studio. He would teach the song to the band on the spot in the studio. He was really terrified that he would get ripped off. He never handed demos out to anybody. Everything that you hear on a T-Rex record was a live recording. Nothing was replaced after the fact. That's truly incredible. Those who performed and recorded with Marc Bolan praised him as a criminally underrated guitarist. Behind his angelic looks and flowing curls prowled relentless ambition, ruthlessness, and a defiance to criticism. Bolan's family and close friends also swore he had psychic powers. When he was just 8 years old, he told his family that he saw himself as a rock star. And that premonition came to its zenith when Bolan was the biggest musical artist in the UK from 1971 through 1974. Born Marc fell in a working-class home to a Jewish father and a Christian mother. He was named after his father's brother, Private Marc Feld, who was beaten to death by an anti-Semitic fellow soldier. It was at the age of 20 in 1946. That was just 13 months before Marc was born. One night, T-Rex's bass player Steve Carey found Bolan crying, running up and down in a hallway of a hotel above the basement studio, emotionally shouting that he could feel all of the victims of World War II. He predicted on many occasions, including media interviews, that he wouldn't make it to 30. And like I said, he was killed in a car accident on September 16, 1977, 2 weeks before his 30th birthday. Bolan had a lifelong fear of dying in a crash, actually, and he refused to get a driver's license. He wrote a song titled Solid Gold Easy Action that seemed to foreshadow his death. The opening line of the song is, "Life is the same and always will be, easy as picking foxes from a tree."
Hey, hey, hey. Easy picking foxes from
Now listen to this. Bolan died when his girlfriend, singer Gloria Jones, was driving a Mini with the license plate reading Fox 661L. That lost control on a notoriously treacherous curve on a road in South London, and it crashed into a sycamore tree. If not the fulfillment of a prophecy, it was at the very least a very bizarre coincidence. The couple was actually on their way home from celebrating a deal that made Marc the host of a new TV show. At the time of his death, Marc Bolan was undergoing a critical and artistic re-examination. Bolan's star steadily faded after its white-hot peak in 71 to 74, and he was optimistic about this TV show, re-energizing the next phase of his career. Yeah, it would have been really interesting to see what Marc was going to do after T-Rex, but sadly, we'll never know. Now, there was another strange twist to Bolan's cause of death. When Steve Curry was also killed in a car crash in 1981 near his residence in Portugal. Curry is commemorated with a memorial plaque on the steps of Marc Bolan's rock shrine in Barnes, London, close by the spot where he died in that fatal crash in 1977. Covers of Bang A Gong, Get It On include versions by Blondie, that was in 1978. The glam disco group Witch Queen in 79. And Elton John did it in 2020. In fact, Sir Elton appeared with T-Rex on that famous Top of the Pops episode in 1971, miming a piano when the band performed Bang A Gong. The most impactful remake of Bang A Gong, Get It On was released in 1985 by The Power Station. It's a super group made up of Robert Palmer, Duran Duran's John Taylor, and Andy Taylor, as Chic's amazing drummer Tony Thompson, and Chic's Bernard Edwards as the producer. Incredible musicianship there. The Power Station's heavier version wasn't as popular in the UK, though. It stalled at number 22. But the single moved higher. Actually was higher than what the original did. It went to number 9, where the original went to number 10. It's a very inspired choice for the band when choosing a cover. Robert Palmer and Duran Duran's John and Andy Taylor were all big admirers of Marc Bolan's work, and the song introduced many of the next generation to the unique voice and talent of T-Rex, especially Marc Bolan, as should be. The influence of Marc Bolan and T-Rex was enormous, to say the least. It is reported that 40 million T-Rex records have been sold around the world. I mean, not only did Bolan pioneer the glam rock movement, he also blazed a fearless trail for superstars like Elton John, Rod Stewart, Freddie Mercury, and Prince. He opened the door to new wave artists such as The Smiths, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, and Culture Club with Boy George, not to mention rock acts like Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, and Def Leppard. There's just not many rock artists that have had influence on various different musical genres and movements throughout the years. But Marc Bolan did. Take me. It's just like the revered Tony Visconti so ardently put it. There's a little bit of Marc Bolan and T-Rex in every rock and roll band that came after him. No question. Leave us a comment about this incredible song and this band, T-Rex and Marc Bolan. Let us know in the comments about your memories of this song, your thoughts on Marc Bolan. I can't believe that he called his own death. Just a wunderkind, this guy. Incredible. And if you like our content, we do invite you to be a part of this channel by subscribing below. Make sure to check us out on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. That's what it's all about. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.